Hey everybody, Scout Crafty here again. Today we're going to be doing something that it's a kind of a viewer request for quite a while. And when we do restorations, there's basically three machines that we use to get a good restoration. That's the first is the wire brush. Secondly, we have the belt sander, and third, we have the buffer. And what we're going to do today is we're going to concentrate on just the belt sander because a lot of people have a little issues with it and they're a little intimidated or they don't know anything about it. We're just going to take this down. A lot of new subscribers have been asking about this, and so I apologize for the old-time viewers, but this is something we got to get out of the way, and I just want to go through a few things that I found, some tips and tricks on the belt sander that I think will help you do a much better job on your restoration. So let's get to it. Now, the belt sander that I use is a 1x30 belt sander. This one's by Grizzly, but all the different companies, they're probably all made in the same factory overseas, but what I do like is I like the belt sanders that don't have the additional disc sander on it, just a strict belt sander. And it's because it transfers more power onto this. It's a simpler unit. The old advantage of KISS, keep it simple, stupid, and that's what we like to do. Now, a 1x30 is nothing more, 1 inch wide. This belt measures 30 inches around. I removed the guard here because when I exchange belts, taking it off, a belt sander is not a dangerous tool to use. I've never heard anybody getting injured by one of these because it's a fairly low powered unit, and then maybe you'll get an abrasion if you touch your hand to the edge of the belt or something. You might get a little cut, but it's a safe tool to use, so nothing to be intimidated by. When you're putting the belt on, there's one pulley in the back. It's a 3-pulley affair here. This one's motorized. These are 2 idler belts. And if you notice, they're convex. And the reason they're convex is because that'll help the belt track to the top. A belt will always want to go to the top of the convex. So by having a convex here, it keeps the belt here. If these were flat pulleys, the belt would constantly be coming off. One belt here, this is your little tracking, and that allows the belt to track left or right. I've never had to really adjust it. Basically, what I do to put the belt on, I put it on the top, the bottom, stretch it to the back here like this, pull this little spring in, and that's set to go. As soon as you turn it on, it'll track to the good position. Now, another reason I like the 1x30 belt is because these belts are very inexpensive for a 1x30, and they're easy to switch off, and they're quite durable. Secondly, there's 2 types of belt sanders. This here is, like I said, an entry level for us. It's great. It's low power. When you have those big belt sanders that you see knife grinders or blacksmiths use, that's basically made for stock removal. So what that belt sander is made to do is to take as much stock off as they possibly can. Much higher RPM motors and also higher horsepower. With us, we don't really want that as tool restoration. What we want is basically something to clean up the area, and we want a little bit more control. So that's why I like the 1x30. Now, this is called the Platen. This is located here, and it's adjustable back and forth with 2 little set screws. I removed mine, and I'll tell you why. Most of what we do in the tool restorations, we do mostly curved surfaces, sometimes flat surfaces. Platens are great for flat surfaces. The belt rides in front of it like this, and as you press your item against to take material off, it'll do a much quicker stock removal because it's pressing against the platen in the back. The reason I take mine off is because when we're using curved surfaces, you want the belt to kind of wrap around the curved surface. When you are using it for a straight surface, which we do once in a while, you'll see me take a stick sometimes, and it's nothing more than a small stick like this, and I basically sometimes knock the edge off here because you don't want to abrade the back of the belt, and then I rub whatever it is that I'm using. I'll touch the back of the stick and it'll give me more control. Now, sometimes when we have a tool, there'll be rust here, but not rust here. So when I put the piece against here, I can control where I want the pressure on the belt to touch whatever part of the tool that I'm doing. Now, one thing that I wanted to stress about the reason I use this little stick as a pressure point is if we do have a flat area that we want to get with the belt sander, if I push my my flat piece of steel here. I'm just using this piece of scrap steel. If I push this against the belt is going to want to ride on the top edge and the bottom edge. So it's going to kind of wrap around. And it's going to leave the middle here pretty much untouched. And I'll show you what I mean now. Now you could see we touched it against the belt, and you think it's a flat belt, but it's really not. It's touching this edge and that edge, and it totally left the middle untouched. So now by taking our portable platen, watch what I could do. Now you could see, by using that portable platen, I was able to manipulate the belt and move it to touch where I wanted. So look what a nice surface we got here. And obviously that's just a quick overview of how we get, and that's why we use this portable, flexible platen, because now I can get to wherever I want on here. Now you can see there's a little pitting on this side here. Now I could take this and press, just like this, press against that area and get just that area without taking too much material off the tool. Now another, this is a little bit more advanced, but something else you'll see me do is sometimes you'll see me take one of the blue shop towels, or here I'm using a piece of regular white paper towel, and I'm folding it up like this, just into a small pad, like that. Now, that pad that I folded this paper towel up, I will press against the back of the belt if I have an area of a tool that might have a little bit of a depression or a convex or something. Now, you know, the stick is great for flat areas or getting in corners and things like that. That's why you see the shape I have on the stick. But with this here, you can use a little bit of feel with your hand. And again, you got to be a little bit careful that, you know, obviously it's very hard. I can't imagine how you would get your finger pinched in any of these wheels, but you just got to use your head and just softly press against the back of the belt. And I'll show you over here. We're going to do this area next to the one we did here. We're going to do this area using the soft pad method. Okay, now you see, using the soft pad method, we have a little bit of a section here that we missed, but I could keep going back there and then adjust the pad up or down to get whatever I want. But you can see here the type of finish. It gives a very smooth finish. And you can see the back of the paper towel. Again, we're just letting that ride on the back of the belt. There's no heat that builds up that I could feel, and it's you can see it's a nice finish. So that's a very good procedure to use. And again, you wouldn't be able to do that if you had the guard or anything on here. So this is something you use your head. Don't worry about, you know, getting crazy with the safety factor. The main thing is with this is the most important thing is some kind of good dust mask. Now, another important thing I'd like to focus in on is the belt selection, okay? Now, you could see here by looking at the belts, you could tell the coarseness and the grit of certain belts. You can see this is very fine. I can't even feel the grit on here. This is a worn out belt. This used to be, you can see it used to be a 220 belt. And you can see it's written back there. Now, this 220 is pretty much worn out, but you don't throw it out because it still has enough grit to do a job. That's what we were using to do this, that 220 grit. Now, if I had a fresh 220 belt, it would be much more aggressive. Now, I'm going to take a little bit more aggressive belt, and I'm going to show you the difference on the surface finish. Now, here we have an 80 grit belt, and I'm going to show you the difference here. I'm just going to touch next to this area that we had that worn out 220 belt. I'm going to hit this with an 80 grit and show you the difference. Okay, now if you look very closely, you could see the 80 grit compared to the Warn 220. The Warn 220 has a better reflection, and the 80 grit has a little bit, if you look real close, you could see the striations there. And what happens is you're going to have to take that down because that won't polish out. So, and that 80 grit was a little bit worn, but I'll show you even with a more aggressive belt. Okay, here's the same 80 grit belt, but this one isn't as worn as the other one. Still, it was used, but still not as worn. And I'll show you. Okay, now it works much quicker because it wasn't worn out, but you could see here the little scratches that you'll have from the belt, the grit, and that's why the smoother you get the grit, the higher the number, the smoother the grit will be, and that'll give you a better finish. So you might want to start with 80, but you have to work your way down until you get to a smooth grip. What does that mean for a rusty tool? Now, if we were looking at here, this hammerhead, okay, you could see here that we have some dents and things. If we wanted to get that out, you're going to have to go to a very aggressive grit to get below these little dings and dents, and it's going to have to be pretty aggressive. So you have to maybe a new 80 grit belt will take it down below some of that before you wear the belt. Now here's a brand new 60 grit belt, and this one here, you'll see this one has a direction of rotation that they would like you to mount it onto the belt sander so that the direction goes in a certain way, and that's because of the way the belt is glued up. Now that's brand new, and watch how much grit this takes off and how quickly it works. I'm going to use this hammerhead. We're just going to touch this top here. I'm going to show you. You see there's little dents and things here that we have there. We're going to see what we could do here. Now that was in real time. Now look at the finish here. You can see there's a little pock marks here and there, but it depends on how much you want to take it down. But you see how nice that looks? Now, but you also see that that 60 grit belt left striations. You know, you could see the striations there. So to get rid of those striations, like that won't polish up to be shiny. It's shiny now, but it won't polish up to be a mirror finish because there's too many striations. That's like raw steel. So then we have to take it down a belt. So that's a 60. Now we'll go to a 180. Now it don't take long because we already got off the major stuff, but you could see with the 80s taking out a lot of those deep scratches and putting in 80 grit scratches. Now we're going to go to a 220 belt. Now one thing I'd like to point out is how nicely the belt wraps around the curved surface of this hammerhead. Now if you had a platen on there, you could never achieve this effect. Notice the scratches are coming out more and more. It's starting to look shinier and it's starting to get almost a mirror finish, I see. Just starting to get it. But again, now we'll take it to an even finer belt. One thing you'll notice that with the finer belts like this one, I move the piece quicker across the belt. You see me moving back and forth very quick, and that's because you get a more heat buildup with a finer grit belt because there's more belt in contact with the tool. So that's why you want to move it back and forth quicker. There we go. We're ready. That That for a hammerhead, because this is hardened steel, that's ready to take to the buffer. Let me show you real quick. Now here we're just using some emery black compound, which is great for steel and for quick removal of steel and rust and things like that, corrosion. If you notice here, you got to put a lot of pressure on your buffer. And now this is not really a buffing tutorial, but just to show you, you got to put a lot of pressure. And you'll see me going back and forth because this will get out some of those imperfections, those small, minute scratches. Now, the reason that it's really important with a belt sander to get down to the finest finish you can get is because a buffer won't really get rid of scratches. A buffer just gets rid of those fine, minute imperfections that's on the steel that's left behind from the belt sander. So that if you come up to the buffer and you have scratches, you'll never get a mirror finish. Now we're taking it over to the other wheel. This wheel is just, it's the same kind of wheel, but it's a little cleaner. There's no real compound on this wheel. So this will get off some of that compound and give it that really nice shine. Okay, so there you saw in real time what it takes to get this to look like that. Now you can see the mirror finish on there. We have a nice mirror finish on the tip of that hammer on the one side. You can see we got out all those scratches and everything, and you can see what it looked like before, you know. So, you know, you could do that with any tool, and you could take it out. It's beautiful now. It'll be a rust-free finish because there's really nothing for the rust to stick on. A nice coat of mother's wax on there will preserve it, but you could see that in real time what it takes, and the belt sander is just a great item to use. So in closing, I guess what I'm trying to say that if you want results like this and you want a mirror finish, you're going to have to put in the extra time. We finished up the hammer, and the whole reason that I did this in live full time or real time is because I wanted you to see that it doesn't come quick. You see us do it and we speed up the whenever we're working on the belt sander and things like that, but the truth is it takes quite a while to get a finish like this, and you have to just put in the time, and anybody could do it. It's super easy. So anyway, thanks very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the video, and take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.